everybody. I want to thank you for being here today, for taking the time out of your day to come see Michael Moore, Ralph Nader, and hear about the Green Party. You know, it's not only an honor, it's more than a little nerve-wracking for me to be opening for three of the most well-known progressive voices in the country. So please bear with me a bit. Despite my stage fright, though, it's my pleasure to be here to tell you a bit about the Green Party of Michigan, the party that put Ralph Nader on the ballot. And these are the founding principles of this most audacious movement, a political party that's also a social movement called the Green Party of Michigan. The Green Party is what this country is supposed to be about. Government of, by, and for the people. Now, all of the people. Not just the ones with a big bank account or the right connections or corporate backing. The Green Party is about heroism. The heroism it takes to work with our brothers and sisters to come to consensus on difficult issues, because we don't claim to have all the answers. What we claim to do is to be asking the right questions and inviting people to work with us for the answers. This is the heroism of continuing to struggle when it seems everyone around us is calling us fools or spoilers, that's a good one, or hopeless, foolish dreamers. I can't tell you how many times I've been called that. But let me tell you a secret, folks. When Gandhi began, all he had was a dream. He didn't have support. He didn't have a political action committee, and he didn't have a billionaire buying people's votes for him. When King began his work, he too was called a foolish dreamer by people too myopic to see the true power of dreams. And now we've got the Green Party. This is a party of people made powerful by the strength of our shared dreams. And now we are the dreamers. But we're not fools. Rather, we are people who are challenged by an ideal. Our ideal, the Green Party, challenges all of us to bring the best of who we are into an arena that often brings out the worst in us. And we've all seen it happen in politics. But to not only work for, but to be the change we so much want to see in this world. The Green Party ideal has inspired several local people to become heroes. People who, unlike Mr. Nader and Mr. Moore, they haven't yet been put in the spotlight, but they're people who live and struggle and work for those same ideals. People who have literally given everything they've got and everything they are to get this party on the ballot and turn the harsh light of electoral politics into the bright light of positive change. Now, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to a few of these heroes. First, I'd like to bring our local candidates up here on stage. Matt Abel for Senate, would you please come up? Scott Trudeau, University of Michigan Board of Regents. And Christy Nowak, Ann Arbor City Council, 4th Ward. Please come on up here a moment. Now, you might ask yourselves, what makes these people heroes? I mean, after all, aren't all politicians just in it for their own, for themselves and for their personal benefit? Well, I'm going to tell you something. These candidates aren't running to add to their prestige or their bank accounts or their resumes or their Rolodexes of people that they can call when they need a favor. These people, these bold and brave people, are running on the principles of the Green Party of Michigan. Now, they've found in themselves the courage to be the first candidates, the standard bearers. These people have found in themselves the courage to become an example of what it means to be a new kind of politician. A Green Party politician, a person who runs for office not just for themselves, but for principle and for the people of the state of Michigan. Now, I'm going to invite you, after the program, you come up to these people. I want you to ask them their position on the issues and ask them why they decided to become candidates. And you're going to be shocked. You're going to be surprised, and you are going to be pleased by the integrity, and the truthfulness and the lack of spin and the lack of polish and the lack of nonsense that you're going to get. You're going to get the straight answers from these people. And I'd like us all to take a moment to just thank them for their hard work and dedication. Now, there's another local hero in the audience. He's someone you may not have heard of, though you might have heard him quoted in the news. He's someone who's been with the Green Party of Michigan since just about the beginning. And he held this dream, the dream of being on the ballot, the dream of putting ideals into action in electoral politics, when no one else had the strength to keep it going. Now, those of us who have had the high privilege of knowing and working with this man have found him to be the soul of what our party is all about. We've seen his dedication, we've seen the sacrifices he's made, and above all, his commitment to stick to principle no matter how many sleepless nights, no matter how much pressure, and no matter how incredibly snappy we could get with each other. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Craig Harvey, one of the main reasons we're on the ballot.
This is cool. I can't see a thing but bright lights. But I know you're out there. I can hear you. That's great. I'm supposed to fill up some time because I hear Ralph is running a little bit late. So hopefully I won't put anybody to sleep. This little history. I started in this stuff back in 95, 96. 96, you might recall, Ralph ran for president then too, but he wasn't on the ballot in Michigan. We didn't have many active Greens in Michigan at that point, at the start of that campaign. We had a few, and we knew we didn't have enough support to get on the ballot at that point to get all the signatures that you need. It takes 30,000 signatures collected in 6 months. But we tried anyway, just to build a party, and it worked. We grew, and we grew, and I stupidly thought I learned everything I needed to know to get us on the ballot in '98. Just figured, just pick the 6 warmest months of the year before the election, but that meant summer of '97, because the deadline to turn in signatures is middle of July. Trouble is, we had a lot of volunteers, but summer of '97, nobody cares about elections, nobody cares about politics, but we still got 7,000 signatures that summer. It allowed us and the Labor Party to go together, and the ACLU has been fighting a case in courts for us to try to get Michigan law changed to allow local ballot access. In the state of Michigan, even if you just want to run for a party like the Green Party, for city council or township, board of trustees or something, you have to get 30,000 signatures statewide for your party to be on the ballot if you aren't already on the ballot, like some other parties we know. So, anyway, here we come up to 2000, 1999. We knew somebody good would run for president. Luckily, Ralph decided to do it, and he chose Winona LaDuke again, which is wonderful. I know there are some Greens that would rather have Ralph running for vice president than Winona for president. Not a bad idea, huh? Anyway, this year, we have grown so much. It is just phenomenal. Thanks to, I had a little bit to do with it, but I'd like to think that if I weren't around, somebody else would have done just as much and we'd still be on the ballot. But there are a couple people that, I don't know. Early on in this whole thing, there's a guy named Tom Ness. He's in Detroit. He has been such a big factor in this campaign, getting us on the ballot this year. He and his wife, Sue. Sue collected personally over 4,000 signatures. Tom decided the best way to use his contacts and his network to collect signatures and get the word out was to run for Senate. So for many months, that's what he was doing. He was going around the state, getting the word out, getting petition circulators lined up, and getting signatures on a Senate campaign. Later on, he and his wife decided that was a little too stressful for their particular situation at the time, and so at our convention this summer, we were lucky to have Matt Abel step up and get the nomination for U.S. Senate. And so it's great to have another person running statewide for that.
Thank you, Craig.
So, the petition drive. Tom has been a major factor in the Detroit area and statewide. This spring, we finally got things working together with the Nader campaign. They were able to hire a full-time state coordinator for Nader 2000, named Yusha Vanier. She's been just a godsend for this campaign. Anyway, I'm stretching this out a little bit too long, I think. So, one thing that gets me, a lot of people who say, well, yeah, we're just doing this to get the word out, to build for the future, and maybe we'll hopefully get 5% so we can get the matching funds next time around, or at least we'll get the 1% we need in Michigan to stay on the ballot, which is certainly trivial, and I have no doubt we'll do that. I have no doubt we'll do the 5% too, but my slogan at the moment is not a vote for Nader is a vote for Bush. My slogan is a vote for Bohr is a vote for Gush. Just vote Nader. The polls, he's about 5% now nationally or something, better in some states. I just bring your attention what our petition drive, how that went. 7 weeks before the end of the petition drive, we had less than 10% of the signatures that we needed. We now have 7 weeks to go in this campaign. Nader is going to be growing and growing, and you just wait to see what happens. And as for the debates, there's a lot of people saying, let Ralph debate, let Ralph debate. I think that's the wrong attitude. We've got to be a little more proactive about this. Just debate this. Nader wins. Get that idea. It can happen, guys.
Now, we've got some other heroes among us as well, not only in this room, but throughout the state. Pete Skirmerhorn, I don't know if he actually made his way into the audience or if he's still busy working out there, but he's our state treasurer, the gentleman coordinating the Green Party of Michigan tables out front. Go visit him and congratulate him. And you know why? Because Pete went all out for the petition drive. He spent so much time working for the Green Party that his job got threatened, and he still kept doing it. And then when his job was taken away, because he spent so much time on green business, he found in himself the courage to become one of the first staff people for our party. Now, this is a position where his job security literally depends on the day-to-day success of our fundraising efforts. How's that for courage? Tom Ness in Detroit, as Craig mentioned, he put his whole business on the back burner. He's one of 2 people, he and his wife, running that, so that he could be throughout the state of Michigan promoting the petition drive. Now he's our candidate for the 12th House District. Anyone here from the Detroit area? Look into it. Joanne Beeman in Charlevoix County has become the only Green candidate in her area running for Drain Commissioner. By the way, she's running unopposed at this time. We will have at least 1 Green in office come November. And there's a special group of heroes throughout the state called Labor for Nader. These people went against their union leadership They've gone against what's perceived as conventional wisdom and common sense, and they have publicly endorsed the only candidate for president who truly champions labor issues, Ralph Nader, the Green Party candidate. And now it's time to introduce to you yet another hero, folks. This is the man who had the guts to put an infamous atheist, Madalyn Murray O'Hair, on daytime TV in Dayton, Ohio, of all places, in 1967. The first man on TV who had the guts to step aside and trust his audience to ask intelligent questions of his guests. And a man who is spending part of his post-TV life as a champion of the ideals of Ralph Nader and the Green Party. Everyone, let's welcome Mr. Phil Donahue.
I feel as though I'm among friends. It's been 4 years since I've been on the air. I was concerned about who would, if anybody, would recognize me. And a guy in the alley in bib overalls said, "Hey, Merv." I am here because I am very, very pleased to join millions of other Americans of conscience in supporting the candidacy of Ralph Nader for president. We need no more evidence of the importance of Ralph Nader's voice on the debates and throughout this campaign than a brief review, a brief peeking in on our latest from the punditocracy. All the talking heads on cable are just, with great, great vigor, examining the important issues of this campaign. Was the kiss too long? No, it's too short. Wait a minute, let me finish. The kiss made him lose distraction so that he doesn't have, his message is out of focus, and we'll be back in just a moment. The Republican vice presidential candidate is now moving his arms more. I read this in the New York Times. The smirk, you know, you can do an hour on the smirk, and they have. And one pundit said, well, he lost the smirk, but what happened to the twinkle in his eye? This is commentary as we make our way in the freest nation on earth. Let us examine what the two major party candidates have done. I mean, how frightened can you be? They don't want to go anywhere near this man who challenges corporate power. Imagine how thrilled Anheuser-Busch would be to have Ralph Nader on the stage. Not to mention U.S. Airways and the other sponsors of the debate process, which was stolen by the major party candidates from the League of Women Voters. Now, the League of Women Voters can watch my grandchildren, my money. The League of Women Voters is, in my opinion, right there with the Salvation Army. An unparalleled moral history of doing good works without greed. And they took it away from it. And now we are told by our Democratic brethren, please don't make trouble. It's the best we can do. To these people we say, we have fought and died over the last several years to protect the right of free speech, the right and the importance of a vigorous, robust debate during the presidential process. Let us examine what will not come up, because Ralph Nader won't be on the stage. Even though we have now reached unparalleled levels of campaign spending and soft money, millions and millions of corporate dollars going into the campaign, including the corporate dollars that will go to both major party candidates during this debate process. It's illegal for a corporation to give to a major party, to any political party. And they're able to do it because they got this Trojan horse. They stole it from the League of Women Voters, and now they're selling it. The next thing we'll see on the podium for the inauguration, maybe a swale. Just do it, Nike. Why shouldn't we sell the inauguration? We're selling the debates. Here's what you won't hear on the debate. Ralph Nader is for public financing. Good idea? Won't come up during these debates. Ralph Nader doesn't think this nation or any nation should execute retarded teenagers. We have 2 million people in jail. Bush and Gore have apparently arrived at a consensus on this huge issue, capital punishment. Their consensus is let's make really, really sure they're guilty before we kill them. With 2 million people in jail, you and I know, most of them for nonviolent offenses, jail population doubled and close to tripled since 1980. Jails which are run by private, for-profit companies who never heard of the First Amendment, or the Fourth Amendment, or the protection against cruel and unusual punishment. You can beat up a handcuffed prisoner as long as you don't inflict lasting damage. 5-4, United States Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas in the affirmative. Ralph wants to talk about this. Ralph wants to talk about the hysterical war on drugs that has cops knocking down doors and saying, "Freeze!" What kind of country do you run? Whatever happened to the idea that a woman's home is her castle? Ralph wants to talk about the oil companies. That's not likely to come up. Ralph wants to talk about pollution and industrial poisoning, the commercialization of children. Ralph wants to talk about the corporations that are getting larger and larger in size, headed by people who worship the stock price. That's the only thing in life that matters. Ralph wants to talk about it. It's not going to happen in the land of the free, because the debate commission, which is not nonpartisan, it is bipartisan, but it is, as Ralph says, the same clownish act with 2 heads. And so for these and many, many other reasons, we are on the road to encourage you and all the people who share our progressive values, we think American values, to bang our spoons, to ensure that the most important private citizen in America's 20th century, a man whose life's work is more vast, more consequential, you can't count the number of people who have lives that have been saved, injuries avoided, because of this one man. And they want that. We ask you to join us in banging your spoons to ensure that this debate season, and incidentally, the debates are the Great White Way. It's Broadway, baby. If you can't get on the debates, you can't get up in the polls, and if you can't get up in the polls, they don't let you on the debates. And if Ralph gets on these debates, I believe Ralph Nader and Winona LaDuke are gonna rock. Ralph wants to talk about this, and so do you. I am pleased to present a longtime guerrilla fighter for the values that Ralph Nader holds, a man who's been out there doing while a lot of people have been complaining. How he ever got what he got on television is, in my opinion, the achievement of the last 30 years. So I'm pleased to present. Here he is, get ready. He's coming to us direct from the Ralph Lauren store in downtown Manhattan. The man my mother wanted to have as a son. I give you Michael Moore.
It's great to be back here at the Michigan Theater in Ann Arbor, the leader of all that's good in this country. We have been on this tour now for a few days, and it is incredible. If you could see the crowds that have been coming out for Ralph Nader, I mean, we're talking about thousands of people everywhere we go, not an empty seat in any auditorium. 2 weeks ago in Portland, 10,000 people packed into this auditorium to see Ralph. They had to turn 2,000 people away. It's been like this all over the country. Finally, one paper reported that, that told the truth, said that Ralph actually holds the record for the largest attendance of any of the candidates running for president this year. They have a hard time getting people to come out for Bush and Gore. And in Flint, Gore, any Flintoids here? Flintstones? And we're going up there in about an hour. And what's really great is that when we announced that we were taking Ralph to Flint last week, that we were going to go there today, within 12 hours, the White House announced that they were sending Bill Clinton to Flint the same afternoon that Ralph was going to be there. And so Clinton is just arriving up there now, so we're going to try and get up there after this, go and try and invite him to debate Ralph on the stage. If Gore is too cheap to go, we'll just get Clinton right up there on the stage. We got Phil Donahue here to moderate the debate. I'll run up and down the aisles with a microphone, Phil. I can use the exercise. But we're going to go up there and see what kind of havoc we can cause in our hometown. When Gore came there on Labor Day a couple weeks ago, and they brought him in at 11 o'clock at night. I was like, they can't bring him there in the broad daylight so they can see what Flint really looks like after 8 years of Clinton and Gore, right? So they bring him in the dead of night. And then their second problem is, how are we going to get a crowd for this guy? So they're trying to figure out who's going to show up to see Al Gore in Flint. They decided to put him in this what they call an auditorium that's in the city hospital, Hurley Hospital in the downtown Flint. That's where he held the rally in the hospital at midnight. And I thought, well, I guess that's appropriate because only the bedridden and medicated can handle listening to him. They needed a captive audience in Flint, Michigan, right? We had 80,000 GM jobs there before Reagan became president. Then after 8 years or 12 years of Reagan and Bush, we ended up with 40,000 GM jobs. We lost 40,000 there. And just between 1995 and today, it's gone from 40,000 GM jobs to 17,000 in Flint, Michigan during the Clinton-Gore administration. And the poverty level in Flint is such now that 67% of all the school children in Flint live below the official federal poverty level. And in the Beecher School District, which borders Flint, the poverty rate is 83% of the school kids there. And I don't know if you saw my last film, the big one, but at the end of the film, we went and confronted Phil Knight, the chairman of Nike. And let me say, just as a side thing here, thank you, University of Michigan, the students and the people here who stood up to Nike. You are to be honored, seriously, for what you did. And Nike thinks they're punishing this university, all right? And they've taken the money they were giving U of M, and now they're going to give it to Michigan State, all right? So that's where we have to move next, right? And actually, we're going to East Lansing tonight, and we're going to ask them to get the swastika off their ball caps too. So anyways, at the end of the film, I challenged Phil Knight to give $10,000 to the kids in Flint, to a school. And I said, I'll match it, just give me 10 grand. And he actually did. He gave me the money, and we took the $20,000, and we bought computers to build a computer lab at Buell Elementary School. And it was it was on their way, these 6-year-old kids, on their way down the hall to use our computers, that a 6-year-old pulled out a gun on February 29th of this year and shot to death another 6-year-old at Buell Elementary, while Kathleen, my wife, our cousin, a little girl, a 5-year-old in kindergarten, sat across the hallway and witnessed this event. And we were so affected by this, and how, you know, we had tried to do our little thing to help the worst elementary school in the Flint area, you know, so that they would be able to enter this computer age and start at a young age and all this. And yet, the problems are so deep, and the system is set up to guarantee the failure of these children, and in general, the people of Flint. And it is amazing that Clinton even has the gall to go there today. I mean, I said to one reporter asked me on the way in and said, what do you think about that? And I said, well, I hope he's coming to Flint to issue an apology. All right, because I would assume that there's a number of us, and I include myself in this group, that back in 1992, after 12 years of Reagan and Bush, we couldn't take anymore, and so we bit the bullet and we voted for Clinton, because we had to end the nightmare of Reagan and Bush. And we were told that you got to go with the lesser of two evils. You got to do this. You got to do this. We've got to do it. We didn't have an alternative at the time, so we vote for Clinton. And what did it get us? What did it get us? It got us NAFTA. It got us a loss of thousands of jobs here in Michigan. Do we have universal health care 8 years later? The thing he promised as he held up the pen in his first State of the Union, that he would sign a bill making sure that everyone would be taken care of in this country. And during a time of so-called economic prosperity, we have 45 million people that don't have health insurance. We've got millions living in poverty. We've got 40 million people that still can't read and write above a 4th grade level. The education president, I think he was our 2nd education president in a row. I mean, this is the legacy. This is what we got, because, you know, I forgot something that Ralph told me a long time ago, that when you vote for the lesser of two evils, you still end up with evil. I'm sure that there are a number of you in here today that are struggling with what to do on November 7th. There are people here who feel that they must vote for Gore to stop George W. Bush from being president. Let me say this. Well, number one, let me give you a little, I'll let you in on a secret. George W. Bush ain't gonna be the next president of the United States. Get over it, folks. It's not happening. The media will do its best to try and keep the horse race going for the next 5 weeks, so they've got something to write about and something to cover. But trust me, the more he talks, the more people get to see him. I swear to God, if they're going to shut Ralph out of the debates, even if Gore didn't show up to the debate, if it was just Bush standing up there, he wouldn't have to speak very long. And I'm one of these people. And I'm not just speaking subliminally. I'm not just... I'm one of these people who really believes that most of the American people are semi-bright. They're not idiots. Now, I know in Ann Arbor it's hard to see it from here. But, and I'll grant you, 50 to 60 million people in this country are stone cold idiots, all right? Just really scary people. 50, 60 million, more than they got in all of France per population, all right? But the good news is that still leaves us with 210 million people who aren't idiots, all right? Let's trust them. Let's believe. Let's quit scaring ourselves into believing that, oh my God, what if George W. Bush becomes president? I gotta vote for Gore because Bush might become president. I want to vote for Ralph, but I'm scared. You know what, folks? I don't know, you better learn this lesson at some point in your life. When you operate from fear, when you make a decision that comes from fear, trust me, it will always be a bad decision. It never works when you come from fear. You have to find the courage of your convictions and act on them. And especially to the students in here today, you most of all must not begin your adult life already giving up. Already saying, well, I gotta do this. I gotta vote for Gore and stop Bush. Because if you start now with that attitude, you're gonna have a miserable life. Because you're gonna work jobs that you don't want to work. Well, I better keep the job because I'm not gonna have my health care and I may not get a better job someplace else. You know, you're gonna be in relationships that suck. You know, you're just gonna have a miserable life if you start now at 18, not doing what your conscience tells you to do. Stories of the 60s and how great the 60s were and how young people today just seem a little apathetic and don't seem to care about what's going on like we did in the 60s. You know it's a pile of crap, folks. And you know the young people today, from everything that's been going on, and it really started about 10 years ago with the shanty towns that you built here in Ann Arbor to oppose apartheid in South Africa, all the way through with WTO and IMF and all the things, the sweatshops that you've been opposing here in Ann Arbor, and you've been leading the country. This is not the time on November 7th for Ann Arbor to play the follower role. This is the time for the people of Michigan to see that Ann Arbor is in the leadership position. That we're going to show the rest of the country that we're going to follow our conscience, we're going to have the courage of our convictions, and do what we think is right. Because if you don't do this, folks, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. I heard Ralph was saying last night, you know, it's kind of like you start lowering your expectations. You start with a McGovern 30 years ago, you begin to lower your expectations each time. Well, I guess I gotta go for this because we want to win the election. And then you end up with Carter, you know, then you get this, then you get Clinton, then you get Gore, then you get Lieberman. You know, I mean, what's that all about? Joe Lieberman, 79% of all of his campaign contributions, according to the New York Times, come from big business. 79%, 3% from labor. What is going on here? We look ridiculous here in Michigan when we have our labor leaders and people who have been at the forefront of progressive causes throughout the decades, supporting a ticket that is in truth a Republican ticket posing with a Democratic face. You need to tell people who are telling you you've got to vote for Gore that you haven't left the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has left you. That's what's happening. And I know we've got to wrap up here because we want to bring Ralph out and we want to get to Flint. And we're going to go to, as I said, the East Lansing tonight. Tomorrow we're going to be at the Target Center, 14,000 seats in Minneapolis. People are expected there. It's really, this is what's going on. You're not going to read about it a whole lot in the press, but this is the kind of turnouts that Ralph is getting. And I guess I want to close on just a couple personal notes. First of all, just
This country never would have been founded if the people who founded this country, and later the people who are the leaders that we admire, the Martin Luther Kings, the Malcolm X's, the Cesar Chavez's, on and on and on, the things that we have now, the bit of progress that we've made, never would have happened if those leaders had not acted on their conscience, and not had the courage to do what they thought was right. If they were compromisers, had they been compromisers, or gone with the lesser of evils, we never would have had the things that we have now. We don't want to turn the clock back. You will turn the clock back if you don't go with your conscience. If you come from fear, we're going to have more fear. It just breeds more of the same thing. Those of us who are from the state, or those of you who have come here and have lived here for a few years, know that Michigan has had to bear the brunt of our economic system, an evil system that benefits the few at the expense of the many. And we now have an even wider gap after 8 years of Clinton and Gore, where the top 1% control 95% of all the wealth. The top 1% get to have two major party candidates doing their bidding for them. And the other 99% get no major party candidate, no time on the airwaves, no invite to the debates. How can we call this a free society and a democracy when the top 1% have two parties and the other 99% have no political representation? Something is seriously wrong. If we have more time, you can go to my website and read this. I wrote this thing about why I don't believe Roe versus Wade will be overturned, even if by some weird, strange, satanic thing November 7th and George W. Bush becomes president. I don't believe that abortion is going to be illegal again. That is another fear tactic. It's been used on us for a long time. We endured 12 years of Reagan and Bush. Abortion is still legal. It's upheld every decision right now by the 3 Republican appointees, the Reagan-appointed Sandra Day O'Connor, the Bush-appointed David Souter, and the Ford-appointed Justice Stevens vote in favor of supporting abortion every single time. And to say that because Bush is going to get in there, look at the New York Times story on his record of appointing Supreme Court justices in Texas. He appoints moderates, and they have upheld every single Texas abortion law because George W. Bush is a politician. And he reads the polls, and he knows that 2/3 of this country is pro-choice, and he will never go against what is now the culture, the law of the land. That will not happen. Trust that. Trust that we won a victory. We have a victory here. It's called Roe versus Wade. It will not change. It will not change. We need to be worried about the fact that under 8 years of a pro-choice administration, now the terrorists have won. In 84% of the counties in this country, a woman cannot get an abortion. What good is Roe versus Wade on a piece of paper if in reality you can't exercise your right because the Clinton administration and Janet Reno have not gone after the terrorists who have bombed the clinics and assassinated the doctors? That's the real issue and the real problem facing the pro-choice movement. In 1913, this man's father immigrated to Detroit, Michigan. Are you aware of this? Ralph Nader's father immigrated to Detroit and became an auto worker in Detroit, Michigan. And we would like to give him a big Michigan welcome. Ralph Nader!